Hey everybody, what's up? My name is Vanessa and I'm the owner of Radiating Beauty LLC National Beauty Rev. National Beauty Rev is an online study resource for those who are preparing for a beauty exam in any state. So if you are here studying for that exam, you probably have so many different questions on your mind and are trying to just really want to stay focused on those goals that you have so that you can get them out of the way. But I want to make sure that you stay focused on that beauty license so that you can achieve those bigger goals and remove any blocks that may be in your way, prevent you from passing that license examination and becoming a licensed cosmetologist, esthetician, manicurist, nail tech, or hair stylist. Now, in this video, we are going to be discussing 5 smart studying strategies. This workbook that I have created here, it is designed specifically for those in mind who are preparing for their beauty exams. Now, the worksheets and the templates in here are made for you so that this way you can utilize them. I highly suggest that you use them and I encourage you use the ones that are beneficial towards you. If you don't use them, I'm hoping that you at least take away a few gems and good tips from this video to benefit you in your studying process. So as we get into those 5 steps, the first step is going to be making a plan and sticking to it. I'm going to go over a lot of different details within that plan. So bear yourselves for that part. The second part is going to be comparing weaknesses and strengths. The third one is going to take advantage of free videos. Fourth is using the color coding system, and I'll describe that in the fourth one. The fifth one is to plan ahead for waiting moments. The first one is going to take us a little bit longer because it is broken down into several different parts. You're ultimately building an entire plan and a study plan based off of yourself and your needs, your own lifestyle, and your own tools and material that you have, your own schedule, and everything that pertains to you. So there's some sheets that I have attached here that are basically going to assist you with that further. And as I share these sheets, I'm going to give a few different examples in this form, but then there's going to be other examples as we just kind of speed through the process. This first one is the focus sheet. What I call it is a study focus list. And the study focus list is going to allow you to break down the information that you want to study the most for each subject. The example that I gave here is the subject sanitation and with listed different areas on those bulletin points. So precautionary procedures, levels of decontamination, types of alcohol, and the vocabulary list. These might be some of the main points that you want to focus on when you are studying, that you want to remind yourself, or even to be able to identify where you specifically need to study. You can also use this for the steps and the procedures if you're preparing for the mock exam also. You can use this in a way where maybe you want to focus on making sure that you are creating a straight haircut, or you're wanting to focus on your sections and your subsections and your quadrants. This can be used in so many different ways. A lot of these sheets can be used either together in combination with each other or just taking a few of them here and there. It's completely up to you and whatever is most beneficial for you. This next one here is the focus points sheet. This one is designed to help reduce the time that it takes for you to be looking for this information and zone in on the information when it is time for you to study. Because there's so many times when I went through my study material, I could literally show you my book and it has so many different like sticky notes and all of these different tabs in it, and I couldn't even remember which one was which at one point. So this sheet right here is designed to basically help you focus in and know exactly where these pages are. The first column, you would write down the subject. I have listed here as an example, sanitation. It's going to be all over because it's redundant in the beauty industry, right? But that second column there is basically where you are writing down the page and the book that you find that information in. And then the third column is where you can find any other resources. So this is beneficial because let's say you're going on a trip, or you're going somewhere else to study, or you're preparing to study. You can look at this sheet and say, okay, I'm studying sanitation today. I need this book, that book, and I'm going to go ahead and pin this, and I'm going to print that from this website. Do you see what I'm saying? It gives you the preparation and the tools that you need, so that this way, when you're sitting down, you can actually zone in and you're not scrambling looking for all the material, because that in itself is time consuming. This next sheet here is a basic study sheet that I created that you can kind of break down a little bit more. So that first one would be maybe all of your different words, and this one would be maybe for the specific subject, sanitation, because sanitation has so many different words. There's a lot of different medical terminology when it comes to this industry, and so you can write those vocabulary words here. If it's for the hair area, then maybe you want to write down the vocabulary words for the hair, the precautionary terms, and different type of abnormalities that you need to know. And then you can also write down the steps in that you would be taking for the examination, or for practicing, or for your study for that day. The next part here is for practicing for the actual examination itself. I I am a huge advocate for identifying your weaknesses and your strengths. I'm going to be repetitive and redundant just as much as sanitation is in my teachings and in my lessons and in my channel here. Because I believe that if you are able to identify your weaknesses and your strengths, then you can either build off of them or support them where they are needed. So, this one right here, let's say that you are wanting to take the haircutting examination as a practice test. You can put on here the areas that you might be struggling in. You can put in the percentage of your grade that you're getting tested, or you can put your average. Another way is if you were doing the written exam, you can write down the specific area, because sometimes with the practice exams, or if you actually go take the exam, sometimes the testing facility will let you know where you were struggling at within the examination, where they tested you at in each part or each subject. So then you could come and use this sheet to break it down and put it in there where you struggled at. Or even if you're on studying, as you're studying and you're doing a practice test for a certain area, you'll be able to identify where you're struggling. So you put that down here, but you also want to know where your strengths are, because you don't want to just beat yourself up. You have to know that you're retaining this information and that you're learning a little bit. So it is good to be able to have some sort of positive feedback with this process. That is what is going to help you get through this in a healthy mindset and have some sort of perseverance through this, because if you only focus on what you don't know and where you're not getting at, then you're not going to feel like you're getting anywhere. But if you focus on, okay, I learned this and I did this, then it's going to be a lot more beneficial. And that's partially what these sheets are for. This one right here, I'm going to actually have you keep this one specifically in mind when we get to the color coding, because this one is going to be beneficial a lot for the color coding, and if you're struggling with a certain vocabulary word. There's several ways that you can use this. I'll describe that use in the other slide. However, in this one, what I'm going to just share with you and recommend that you use it for is basically, let's say you have a certain word that you're trying to work on. Let's say you're trying to understand the mitochondria a little bit more. You can write down the word mitochondria on the top, and then in the key points, you would just simply draw the mitochondria and write down a few key points about the mitochondria. This will help you identify exactly that specific word and break it down so much. It gives you a little portion right here for the definition as well, so that this way you're not just going based off of the definition of it, but you can go off of any other forms that may be beneficial for you with your own personal learning process. For me, I needed some type of visual learning, and so this was one of those steps for me to create some sort of learning material that was visual for me personally. All right, and on to the next one. This is another study sheet where you can write down the different vocabulary words and steps. This one is another study session. It's kind of like the examination, but if you were actually doing study sessions and you're wanting to record when you are studying and how much you studied, so that this way you can go back to study more in that area because you know you didn't give it enough attention and enough time. Or maybe you're wanting to make sure that you're studying for a specific amount of time and you're trying to achieve a certain type of um, understanding within that subject. So, this is kind of allowing you to have those key points in front of you and your goal set right in front of you. And on to the timing part for when can I study and planning. I highly suggest that you create the plan by using these pages included, and you would basically write down the times of the days that you can study with minimal interruption. This sheet right here will go hand in hand with the next sheet. This next sheet here is a little bit more detailed. So that first sheet, you would write down the times, and then this one, you're going to write down specifically what you are going to be studying during those times. Now, without going too much detail into the color coding, because we have a few more slides before we get into that, I would suggest that you use a color coding system for each of the subjects and use that in this schedule, so that this way when it's that time and it's that day, your brain automatically knows what you're going to be preparing for and what you're going to need for that study time. On this next part, I am sharing another different format for you to keep track of your timing if you are taking the mock exam or the practical exam. This is something that may or may not benefit you. If you are trying to make sure that you meet the time requirements and the timing of meeting these examination points is difficult for you, then this might be something that you can utilize to help you achieve that goal. So basically, in that timetable on the right, each time you take that practice examination, you would write down your time. Let's say, for example, it's going to be a haircut. I don't know why I keep going over haircuts, but let's say it's going to be a haircut. Then you can write down in the deadline, on this date, I want to be able to cut the hair within 30 minutes instead of 40 minutes. And then you can also write the next deadline, on this day, I want to be able to cut the hair within 25 minutes instead of 30 minutes, and so on and so forth until you reach the point where you are meeting the guidelines of the testing requirements for your examination. You can also put in there the subject that you are wanting to focus on whenever you are studying for this specific part. Let's say, again, it is getting that straight line, or maybe it's focusing on your shape if you want to talk about nails. Maybe it's focusing on the adhesion and the process that it takes in order to prepare the nail properly for acrylic or whatever type of examination that you're taking. You can also record your study progress in here because, again, you want to be able to see where you are making your progress. You want to be able to feel good about your accomplishments, and that's what's going to help you continue to achieve those goals. You got to create that brainwave going, and you got to create that momentum going, and that's what's going to create that confidence as well as that belief in yourself. This is just another format of the other ones in combination. You can write down your focus points, your goals, your to-do, and your schedule here. If you have a specific planner that you're wanting to do, let's say for a week, this could be like a weekly planner, or it could be a simple days planner of what you're doing for your Mondays, let's say, and then for your Tuesdays, and then for your Wednesdays. You can write down your schedule, you can write down what you need to do. So let's say you know that you need to focus on a certain area, you just enter it in there, and any extra notes that you may or may not want to take. Now, as we move on into number 2, I want you to keep in mind that these are separated in comparison so that this way you know where you may need support and where you have support. So, a couple of in depth and humbling questions here include: where are you confused, lowest, testing? So this is important because these are the areas that you are going to want to focus on. Some of the testing facilities may give you the information on where you are struggling. If you're taking a practice test, it may give you that information on where you're struggling specifically. So do you know where you are struggling at? And do you know where you already are good at and where you don't need to remember the information anymore or repeat it in your head? Because you don't want to keep reading information that you don't need to read. You want to go over the information that you know that you don't know. That's how you are identifying your weaknesses and your strengths and supporting your weak areas with your strengths. What stops you from studying? For me, one of the things that was stopping me for studying for a good 5 years or so was because my son had severe respiratory issues. He was born with severe respiratory issues and was hospitalized 5 to 9 days every other week. So I literally was unable to study or have a life in any way, shape, or form. My son's life completely depended on me being there for him. And so I had to make the sacrifice of trying to study whenever I could. And ultimately, that is one of the reasons why it took me a little bit longer and I struggled a lot with the examination. It wasn't just because of my dyslexia and it wasn't just because of other life circumstances. A lot of it had to do with because I prioritized my child over everything else. But I am honored to say that. And I'm also even more honored to be here with that strength, knowing that it took me a long time and yet I still accomplished this goal. I don't consider that a weakness in any way. I actually believe that it is one of my biggest strengths to be able to make that decision for myself. And that's one of the reasons why I feel strong enough and confident enough to be here to be able to share this information with you. However, life be lifing, and so sometimes life's not only stopped me from studying, but it also stopped me from being out here and presenting this information as I've been trying to for several years. So please bear with me. And if you're here and you've gotten this far and you're liking the video, don't forget to like that video and subscribe. All right. And so, what makes studying fun to you? Hopefully, I am a person that you are going to get to know and enjoy learning with and studying from. As you can see, I feel like I can have a little bit of a silly type of personality, and I do try to enjoy life for the most part because I know how difficult it can be. Now, what other things might be creating difficulties for you? Could be fears and failures, or fears of being a failure and fears of mistakes. Fears of mistakes is one of the hugest things. You want to make sure that you believe in yourself no matter what. Even if you make a mistake, you just got to dust yourself off and try again. Now, there, of course, because of how life is and mental emotional health isn't the best in the States. Unfortunately, it's a very underrated thing, in my opinion. But we all have those not in the moments. So you need to know who your support circle is. You need to know who's in your system within your environment who believes in you and who can support you when you're down. Because ultimately, we all do need to be uplifted in one way or another and at one time or another. And I'm hoping that I can be an uplifting resource for you as you prepare for the beauty examination. Before we get into this third one, I just want to mention that I have been sick, and that is one reason why the last video that I put out there was just a voiceover, because I was kind of at the peak and just trying to get the information out there. So please bear with me if you're hearing a little bit of the wheezing or if I sound a little bit raspy. My voice is still recovering, and I'm trying to do the best I can to get this information out here. So while we are on this one, number 3 is going to be the friendly reminder to take advantage of the free videos that are out there. I cannot emphasize this enough. Every state is different. However, each of these videos has so much information and might answer a couple of the questions that you have while you're practicing or preparing for the examination. So I don't want to discount or dishonor in any way these videos that are out here because I am a full advocate for them in a way of supporting them and knowing that they are doing a good job. And so I just felt it was appropriate for me to come out here and share my own story and my own process and my own way. In no way am I trying to step on anybody's toes. I'm actually encouraging you to go out there with the discernment of knowing your state. Keep that in mind. Okay, now as we get into this part, I just want to mention that I'm not trying to be tone deaf in any way or discount people who have certain type of disabilities that this information may or may not apply to. I am simply sharing this workbook through my own personal experience and something that benefited me as a person who has dyslexia and understands these type of struggles. If there is any other way that I can advance this information for those who have color blindness or other types of issues, please share that information with me so that I can incorporate it into my resource. I would be more than happy to support any other form of disabilities that I am not sharing today because I am not aware of them all fully. And I am, again, just sharing what worked for me personally. So I hope that this information, if it applies to you and if it benefits you, then that is the whole purpose of this video. I apologize for those that this portion may not be as beneficial for. And again, please reach out to me and let me know if there's any other forms that I can incorporate into this. So this fourth part is the color codes. This benefited me so much because I have dyslexia, and knowing the color of the rainbow sequence automatically in my brain, it allowed me to be able to identify if I was making a mistake when I utilized it within the study material. Because scientifically, since we already know the sequence of the color of the rainbow, if we are utilizing it with something, then our brain is going to catch on a lot faster if there's something that's off. So as you can see with the first word here, bacteria, if you're having a vocabulary word that you're struggling with spelling or that you're struggling with dyslexia wise when it comes to comparing the words melanin and melatonin, this might be a beneficial way for you to break down that material or that information and be able to help your brain grasp onto the different words a little bit better. Another way is when you're taking your notes, you can use color codes to separate subjects and topics. You can use darker and lighter shades when working with those subtopics. Or you can also use the colors of the rainbow when writing and highlighting directions. Again, if you are writing it and putting it in a sequence of the colors of the rainbow, then your body and your brain is going to automatically know what's going to come next. And whether you believe it or not, on the written examination, you may or may not be tested for certain tests, for certain steps. So you want to make sure that you also know the steps, even if you're not taking the practical examination. Now, back to that first one, really quick. There is a different way if you have dyslexia that you can also utilize this, or if you get confused with certain words. I'm going to do my best to describe it, and hopefully before I put this video out there, I'll have an example listed. But basically, let's say you have the word melanin and melatonin and you're getting confused like me, because that is one way that they try to trick you up on the examination, is by putting those words that they know you might get confused on and together in one question. And so what I would do is I would break up the first part of the word, mala, and I would highlight it within a certain color, like let's say yellow. And then the rest of the word, it would be a different color, like blue or green. And then I would have the other word, so that would be melanin, and then melatonin. So then this way, when I looked at the words side by side or together and I was studying, and because I knew that this was my weak point, so I was trying to study on my weak point, and then I was able to identify exactly where my brain was getting confused at. Okay, this is why my brain's getting confused because of these letters right here. So it wasn't just me putting the each letter in the color of the rainbow. That's separate. The letters when in this sequence that I'm describing right now is a little bit different from the one that's in this first example. This example that I'm talking about, the letters were black, and then the highlight of that word was different depending on which part of the word, because that's where I noticed that since some of the similarities were spelled the same or they sounded the same, then that's where I was getting confused. So hopefully that helps you. Comment below and let me know if that was beneficial for you. And bear with me just a bit longer because we are almost done. This is one of the last ones. We do all have those moments when we are in line waiting for our friend. Maybe we're at an appointment, the DMV, waiting for our license plates, whatever, and we have our phones or some sort of device and we're just scrolling, or we're texting people and we're talking on the phone. Use these as moments to refresh your brain, because the more that you go back to the information, even if you're not breaking it down to like sit down and study on it, but if you're just going in to address it, maybe it's something that's in your mind that you're continuously repeating in your head, then you can go through and verify and allow your brain to cement that information. Then you can push that to the side and move on to the next portion. It helps you so much if you utilize those little times, watching videos during those times, pulling out your own study material. I actually have here one little book that I created on my own, and basically I would just write down the words here and then I would write the definition on the back. And so I was sitting there at different places. I would just be flipping through this little book here. I would put down the degrees of haircuts. I would put down the um the section sizes that I needed, and then the amount of application from distance from the root when it came to the virgin hair relaxer and the chemical applications. I had I also had the steps written down for the acrylic. Another one that I have here is a little book, and it's like a index card holder book, and I basically have each section put into these little folder tabs that it has here. And I didn't use normal um, index cards. I actually liked to use these graph papers better so that I can write and draw on them. And I did a lot of color coding and writing down steps based on the colors. So utilize the time and make yourself smaller study material for the areas that you're struggling in, so that this way you can just have those little refresher moments and make it easier on your brain to gain the information and retain it. All right, and this is just an example of a couple of the other sheets that are within this workbook. There's a questionnaire for you to mindfully prepare you, because whether we want to face the facts or not, there is always a chance that we may not pass an examination. and you want to make sure that you're mentally prepared to get yourself up again if you end up failing that examination. What are your career goals after you take the examination, and what are the steps to get to those goals? After you pass the examination, how are you going to celebrate? Are you going to just go out with your friends and binge and, just unwind and take some time off? Are you going to jump straight into the industry? Are you going to get your own salon? These are different things that you definitely want to be asking yourself. And then this other side over here just gives you a few goals for you to think about. As we've been discussing here in this video, you want to make sure that you have your plan and your schedule set so that this way you are dedicating yourself and giving that devotion that your future deserves for you to become successful within this industry. You want to recognize your strengths and weaknesses and know where you struggle at. You also want to make sure that you develop a good support system and network with other people within the industry. And you want to make sure the most important thing is that you believe in yourself. As I've been saying, you got to have that confidence in yourself, but you got to know where your weaknesses and your strengths are and know that you're working on those weaknesses in order for you to have that confidence in yourself and believe in yourself. So, to continue to make things easier for you, I went ahead and created a checklist. Now, the checklist here, it has 4 different time parts or time stamps in a sense. These would be different points of this cosmetology beauty industry licensing journey. And so you have your study plan, which includes when can I study, your focus points, the study schedule, resources and tools. And then during the pre-examination, you want to make sure you study as often as you can. If not daily, at least study as often as you can. Even if it is you sitting there and having that thing in your head all day where you're like, I cannot remember what this meant, or I can't remember what this step was, go to the step. If that's the least you can do for your brain to help feed it the knowledge and the information that it needs to absorb so that this way you can be successful, then make sure that you're at least even taking that minimal amount of time. Study as often as you can. Apply for the examination, pay those examination fees, and schedule the exam. Now, this next part, I cannot believe I'm even going to have to say this, but please make sure that you show up for the examination. I understand and I know how stressful it can be. And I understand and I know the mental anxiety and all of those types of issues that we have as human beings. But please make sure that you give it to yourself to go in and show up. In the past, studies have shown that up to 50% of people actually showed up for their examination. So make sure that you eat and rest well 24, 48 hours prior to the day of. Try to reduce the stresses. That means that if you got a boyfriend who's stressing you out, you just tell him, I'm sorry, but I can't talk to you for a couple of days. I got to focus on this. If you got a friend or family member who's stressing you out, you ask them, please give me some space. If you got kids, then you try to get arrangements made for you. And if you can't make arrangements made, you make them for yourself. You put them to sit down for that night and watch a movie, get them to bed early that night, maybe take them to the park so that they can run around, play a game with them in the house before they run around, before they run themselves out. Let them run themselves out. Get them to bed early and give yourself that rest. Take a nice bath. If you can't take a bath, then get yourself at least some sort of water and put your feet in it. Relax and give yourself that stress reduction that you need so that this way you can fully walk into there with all of the brain cells that are good and healthy for you when you're walking into that examination. Stay confident in yourself. Again, make sure that you believe in yourself and the information that you've retained and that you know that you've been learning. And even if you make a mistake, don't worry about it. Now, this part, I'm going to say this last one. Be gentle with yourself, okay? Be gentle with yourself and your mistakes. But this part right here, I'm going to go into a little bit of detail on. The day of the examination, if you are taking a written examination, this is my suggestion for a way of taking the examination. I I have taken this written examination many times. Again, I've between both tests, it took me 8 attempts total. And I believe that the written examination, it was 3, I believe. So the and it wasn't until, excuse me, it wasn't until I used this method when I actually passed. The first time you go through all of the questions and answer only the ones you know and flag the ones you don't know. So if you have the opportunity to go through the questions multiple times and take a break, this is going to apply to you. But if not, I'm sorry. Make sure that you study as much as you can and let me know if you need some support. I'm here for you. But if you are able to take a break, you're going to want to go through it twice. And the first time you go through all of the questions, you're going to want to answer the ones you absolutely know that you're like, I know this answer, I know this answer. If you do not know the answer to the question at all and you're like, where did they get this from? It wasn't on the practice exam. It wasn't here. It wasn't there. Da 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 da. Flag it. Flag that question. Don't worry about it. Step away from it. The second time you come around, you are not going to go through those flagged questions. What you're going to do is you're going to go back around and you're going to answer the questions that are not flagged. You're going to answer the questions that are not flagged and leave the questions that are flagged for after a break. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. I'm still getting over that cold. So you're going to leave the flagged questions for the last part. You're going to go through it once, answering all the questions that you know, flagging the questions that you don't know. And then the second time around, you are going to answer the questions that you're kind of sure about. After that, you're going to take a step back, go take a break, get a fresh glass of water, drink of water. You're going to breathe and you're going to come back and you're going to finish those red flags. Leave the red flags for the end because a lot of times when you don't know the answer to a question, sometimes it's within the other answers and it helps you and it triggers your brain. So leaving those for the end gives you the opportunity to know that you did the best you could. You already got the best out of the way. You did the best you could. And all you have left is to knock out what you think you don't know. And you might be amazed when you go through those red flags. Only in this one. Only here does those red flags apply. All right, and on to the post-examination checklist. You want to check those results, process the results, celebrate you, no matter what. Celebrate you. You celebrate your accomplishments, you celebrate how far you came, you celebrate the fact that you made the effort and that you showed up and that you paid it and that all of that. You celebrate everything, no matter what. And you plan for your next steps, whichever direction it goes. Okay, now other offers that National Beauty Rev does include one-on-one coaching, e-guides. This is the workbook that we're talking about today, but I also have a few other e-guides that are for specifically the practical examination. So that would include the steps and the supplies. The supplies portion of it does go into detail on the bagging and the labeling and the recommendations for that. Now, it is for anybody in any state because the information, the way that I've broken it down, it's basically mainly just talking about the multi-use and the single-use items and how to label it or how to bag it. So, if that's something that you're interested in, please go ahead and contact me. Let me know. The My Study, this is part of My Study. This is one of the portals to My Study. I used to have a Google Classroom, however, that is under construction, and I am under the process of updating the material to make it a lot more easily accessible as well as understandable, legible, and feasible to multiple different types of people. So I want to close out here by just giving you a friendly reminder and disclaimer that I am not a representative of any state, department, or regulatory agency, labor, national association, accredited education testing, or related professional affiliations. My study coaching services aid with studying for the exam and services or material provided by Radiating Beauty LLC National Beauty Rev does not guarantee a passing grade on the exam or practicing licenses. I just had to put that out there. I am just a cosmetologist who struggled with the examination and thought it would be a great opportunity for me to introduce myself as I prepare for the next steps in my own journey. So, thank you very much for listening today. If you enjoyed this video, if you are on this journey and you want to make sure that you are notified whenever I update a new video, please subscribe and hit the notifications as well as that like button. Comment below the state you're in and let me know if you have any questions. Thank you. Happy studying. Take care.